Alright, in this video tutorial we're going to overview the slice tool inside of Photoshop and kind of look at a few of the nuances with how that works. Now let's jump over here and select the slice tool. The slice tool has two different tools, you'll notice. One is the slice tool and the other one is the slice select tool. So the slice tool is used for creating slices, and once you've created your slices you need to edit those and manipulate them, then you move to the slice select tool. So the first thing I'm going to do is cut out the necessary images. Now I don't need to cut out this Evercool Corporation logo that we created earlier, as that's just text. That's actually just going to be text in the final website. So that won't be an image, it'll be typography. All of these links here are just text images, or rather text as well. So those are also going to be regular text in the final website. So I don't need to slice out any images there. The first image I run into is this large image right here, where the featured slider would run. So we do need to slice this out. Now let's come up here. The slice tool usually has snapping turned on. So once I click up here and you start to drag down and create the slice, it will kind of automatically, you can see, jump to the layer bounds. And I'll come all the way down to the bottom right here and let go right there to create that slice. And I'm going to zoom in here to make sure it's just perfect on the bottom there. That looks like it's good there. And let's come up here to the top. That looks like it's right on the top. I'm going to hold down spacebar to pan over here to the left. And it looks like I'm actually a pixel off here. So here's where I can get my slice select tool and grab this edge and bring it over 1 pixel to make sure that's just right. And we'll swing over to the right side and do the same thing. Double check this. Looks like I'm a pixel off here as well. So we'll slide that over, zoom in, and now we're just exactly on there where we need to be. Okay, so once I have that area selected inside of my slice tool, you want to get in the habit of naming your slices right away. So I'm going to get the slice select tool and double click this slice. So once this slice pops up, I can give this slice a name, and I'm just going to call this featured image for now. You can ignore the URL, target, all of these things. These are really legacy options that come from Photoshop version, who knows, 9 or 10. They've been around forever and they're really useless in today's workflow in the web, so you can kind of ignore all of these. If you do need to edit the dimensions of this slice for any reason, you can manually grab those corners like I showed you, or you can actually come down here and punch in width and height and X and Y values to position them exactly how it's supposed to be. So let's hit OK there, and this slice has now been created, and you'll notice that this slice is appearing as blue. There's this little icon up in here, and that's telling me that the slice I just created is a user-based slice. User slices are a little bit different than these gray slices. You can see there's a gray one here, one over here. These are called Photoshop slices, or some people call them auto slices. I actually think the new versions of Photoshop up here, you can see they're called auto slices. If you don't see these gray ones, it might be because you have this selected where you're hiding all of the auto slices. So the way that the slice tool works, as soon as you create one slice, Photoshop automatically splices up the rest of your document and creates these little gray slices. It's pretty rare that you use the gray slices. They're kind of throwaway slices, so I like to just hide those so they don't get in the road. All right, now I have this image created down here. We also need to slice out the shadow. This big long shadow we built before, we're going to need to use that on our website. So I'm going to create another slice that goes just around that shadow. I want to separate the shadow from the image because it might be that I want to rotate 5 or 6 images inside of here, and I don't want to include this shadow on every single image. So we'll jump down here and let's zoom in here nice and tight and create a slice around that shadow. So it's wanting me to grab that, but we can just slice. Whoops, I have the wrong tool. I have the slice select. Make sure you have the slice tool, and we'll click right over there. And then I'm going to pull this all the way over to the right, create a slice around this shadow, and pull it up to the bottom of the shadow about right there and let go. We do want to make sure that we include all of the shadow pixels over here on the left hand side, otherwise they'll get cut off. It's a little subtle, maybe hard to see in the video, but that shadow does in fact come all the way down through there. So now that I have this slice created, immediately after you use the slice tool, it automatically switched to the slice select tool, so you can double click without having to go back and select the slice tool. But if you do any other actions, you will have to actually select the slice select tool. There's a tongue twister. All right, let's call this one featured shadow, and we'll hit OK. The reason why we're naming all of these slices is because Photoshop will actually use these slice names as the file names when we save all these things out. So we've got that slice, we have this slice, we need these two images here. So let's zoom in on these and we'll slice out these images as well. So we'll take this little W we created earlier. If you hold down Shift, you can get a perfect square, which is kind of what I want for this one. So I'm holding down Shift and just line this up. It looks like that's 68 by 68, which should work. And we'll let go there. Let's double click this and we'll just call it, let's see, which section is this? The web design, web. You can do underscores or you can do dashes for your file names. It's just kind of personal preference. I'll do a dash this time, web design, and I'll call this dash icon and hit OK. And we'll swing over here and snag this one as well. So the first one was 68. Let's see if we can get this one to be 68 as well. So in order to get this exactly 68, I'm just going to double click it and come in here and punch in a 68 by 68 and then hit OK. And that'll resize that, and then I can just use my arrow keys to nudge this around to make sure I've included most of this logo. And that looks pretty good right there. So let's double click that and we'll call this one, let's see, what was this section? The copyright. So we'll call this the copyright, what do we call it? Dash icon, copyright icon. And you also could potentially, you could actually bring these down right to the edges, and that actually might be a little bit better to bring all of these right to the edges so we're not wasting pixels in the download time. You'd probably want to bring all your images right to the edge, so you don't have those extra pixels. I'm going to just ignore that for a minute. We're just going to go with the same size for both of these just to keep them the same, but you may decide, or it's probably a better idea to keep those right against all the edges. Now let's see, we need to snag this image over here, and so let's come over inside of here. We'll grab our slice tool and we'll quickly pull a slice around this one and double click it, and this is called current projects -1 because I do have two of these images. So let's actually make sure that looks like that one's a little bit off. If your snapping is seeming like it's not quite working right, you just want to double check. Go into your view menu, come down to snap, and make sure it has snap to. All of these should be selected when you're doing this snapping. So I'm going to get my slice select tool because it's a couple pixels off there, and I'll pull this down, pull this in, so it's right on the, whoops, one too far. If I can get it there. Doesn't want to snap there. Let's see if I can. It's being stubborn, so I'll zoom in a little bit farther. There we go. Oftentimes with this slice tool, you have to zoom all the way in to fix those little problem areas. Here's another one. You notice the keyboard shortcut for the slice tool is C. So if you just hit C, it'll jump right to it, so you can quickly pull these up. Swing over to the right side and make sure that that one's snapped in place. Looks like I'm zooming too far in. I need to zoom out a little bit. And that one's one pixel off as well. So it looks like all those sides were incorrect, but now we've repositioned all those. And let's give this second slice down here. So we'll switch back to the slice tool. We will snag up here in the corner, and maybe this one will hopefully get a little bit closer. And let's zoom in to see. Looks like we need to fix that bottom edge. So I'll pull that one down a pixel if it's going to let me. Nope. Zoom in farther. There we go. Zoom out a little bit. And this is a 1 pixel low there. It's probably a better idea to zoom in before you create the slice, and that looks like it's good there. Okay, so now we have that one, and that's looking pretty good. And it looks like the other images we need to select here would be this callout box right here. So we're going to come inside of here and create the callout box. Now with this callout box, we have a couple of options. Typically you don't want to include text inside of your images if it can be replicated with CSS. And so I wouldn't want to get my slice tool and create a big giant slice all the way around this object, because I'm going to include this text as part of the image. So the first thing I need to do is turn off the images or the text in these layers. So I'm going to get my move tool and select this option where it says auto select, and I'm going to switch this to layer so that I can just quickly select that layer, turn that off, select that layer, turn that off, select those words, and turn those words off. And then the rest of this is just going to be one big giant button here. So we'll make sure that this slice is right on the edges where it needs to be. So we'll come back to our slice select tool and pull this one in a pixel. And it looks like the bottom is right on. And we'll come check the right side. It looks like that's a pixel off. So we'll bring that in. Whoops, 1 pixel. It's going to let me. There we go. So now that's exactly where it needs to be. Now we can double click it to name it. And we're just going to call this call out box BG for background. All right, just a couple more images here we need to snag, and those are these 2 images. So kind of the similar workflow here. Let's come in here and get our slice tool, and we're going to slice around this little heading here on our sidebar, and we'll pull this down a pixel to include that bottom piece. Being a little stubborn, so we'll zoom in. There we go. Check the top. The top looks good. Left looks good. And let's swing over to the right and check the right side. And the right looks good. So now we just need to turn off that text. So back to the move tool, select that layer and turn off its visibility because we don't want the text included. We just want the little background element here. And let's name this slice. So back to our slice select tool, come in here and I'll call this sidebar dash heading dash BG. And we'll hit OK, BG again for background. And that's most of the images we're going to need. The rest of the elements we'll be able to replicate with CSS. We could possibly even replicate this entire element with CSS. We'll look at that once we get there. But once we have all of our slices created and named, we'll look at saving all these out in the next tutorial.